Ok, bueno, pues entonces, ¿sí? ¿Les parece bien? Ok, bueno, pues bienvenidos y bienvenidas a quienes están viéndonos o nos verán en el futuro en esta última sesión con la que cerramos nuestra cuarta semana de la complejidad. Vamos a tener esta última mesa sobre el C3 y las ciencias de la complejidad. Nos acompañan Alejandro Frank, Xavier Soberón, Carlos Aramburo, Chris Stephens y Julieta Güeña. Y para empezar, queremos poner un video que representa muy bien las ideas del origen y los objetivos del C3. Si lo puedes poner en pantalla completa, Oscar. Perfecto. Adelante.
No crean que está fallando el sonido, no tiene sonido. Entonces, por favor, lean.
Well, as you can see, we have been too silent about complexity. I want to thank Emilia Zekeli, who's not here, who was a postdoc here with us. She comes from social sciences, from political science, and she was a great person to have working with a group of physicists and mathematicians and biologists. And she created this video. And what I wanted to say. Más cerca. What I wanted to say. Oh, very nice voice. What I wanted to say is that after listening to all these brilliant experts talking about complexity, it is rather difficult to say anything very new. So I decided, and maybe she can help me, Aleida, to put my 5, I promise it's only 5 slides, which are very old. They come back to Chris Stephens and me talking about this project. Most of them are 20 years old. And what I want to show you is that things, unfortunately, have not changed too much since then. And then I will make a few comments Go ahead, please. So I'm not going to say anything new here. This is usual science, okay? And this elephant, I think I owe the elephant to you, Chris.
Not that particular one.
That's not yours?
No, that's more artistic.
Okay, okay. So this is disciplinary work. I want to say that people have been talking about how to develop a complex way of thinking in society and so on. But we have a microcosm here at UNAM. We have created this project almost 20 years ago. And 10 years ago, almost exactly, we inaugurated this building. And this was a very lucky step and a very important step for us. But we have suffered all the things that were mentioned. We have suffered directly. Imagine this is I always think about this university in particular and this campus as a brain. It's a big brain. It is rich in knowledge and ways of thinking. However, it is a disconnected brain. So it is like having, being able to see, but not touch, or being able to do without seeing or hearing. So with Chris, we thought what was necessary to do here at UNAM, in this marvelous campus and in other campi. And we came out with this idea of, please, next one, to realize, first of all, this is 20 years old, this slide. The next one, so I was asking Chris how you pronounce this in English, the Tower of Babel. That's what we are in this university. We all talk different languages. So we decided not to talk to each other, basically, or to have very rare and very slight collaborations, point collaborations, and so on. And how to proceed here in this lab, this very big lab, which is the University of Mexico, the National University of Mexico. The next, please. Se nos fue. Oscar. Okay. So this is Chris's first slide that he gave to me to explain to me what he meant by thinking of C3. And on top, we see the network, which unfortunately remains till now, 20 years later, essentially, and the very scant number of interactions of people that go from one institute to the next, and so on. And well, there's my brain, which is disconnected in the different parts. And there's C3 already there in green down to your right. And the idea of bringing people to C3, not to stay here, but to create, to start from down below and create the problems we must solve. So this is, as I was saying, that our university is a very good example of what happens in society, that everyone basically is interested. There is this tribal instinct to defend your own area in this case. So there it is, 20 years ago. Please, the next, Oscar. So well, this is the miracle that happened 10 years ago. One of our presidents of the university accepted not only to build a special place for this project, but actually to give us the most wanted place that remained, because we are surrounded by protected land. And this was probably the most looked after place for many projects. But he decided to give it to us because he realized, Jose Narro, that this is something that was lacking in the university. Next, please. Okay. So this is a phrase, what it says there for those not Spanish speaking, is that this multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary, that I know have different meanings, arise naturally from what we need from nature, from the different scales and the different aspects of nature. Next, please. That's something that has not been stressed until now. Our original design may be too naive, was to think that the construction of this building and this, it was designed. Some people think it's not the proper design, but I think it was a big competition between 7 different architectural buffets. And it was built with the idea of interaction. Some people don't understand what its meaning is, but it has not been stressed that from the beginning we decided that we didn't want to have here permanent positions. Okay? Why? Why not permanent positions? Because in the model we have in every university nearly in the world, they become fixed. They freeze. And when, you know, everybody does what it has to do. If I have a chance later, this is nearly my last slide. This is also old one. We will comment a little more about this. We already have now 2 permanent positions here. I'm talking about researchers, not technicians, which would simply not work in this same way of working. But we have still believe that in order to be able to react, being able to react quickly and to move, we need the space and the opportunities of having a space like this. I finish here, and we can talk about many other subjects. I was very interested in listening why we are actually having so much trouble to convince other people. It starts from the name itself. People think that complexity means complicated. And so they believe we are diminishing them by saying, you're the one that needs simple science. So I finish here, and I will try to comment a few other things later.
Thank you very much. I'm just moderating this session, but he got the microphone. But well, yeah, he has a self-moderation. No, that is true. That is true. Well, actually, I know this project since the very beginning, and something that hasn't been mentioned, and I know very well, is the national lab that this place has, is one of the things that perhaps could be mentioned when you discuss the, okay, so let's then, we have now something about the past, how it started. Now, I wanted perhaps to go to something related to the previous session. How do you see complexity sciences now? I mean, we just heard the discussion about how they are developing. So how do you see them now besides C3? We will talk about C3, but I'm talking of the general field. Carlos, perhaps, what's your opinion about the general field?
Well, I think that in the past roundtable, very important ideas were given about this. And me being not a specialist in the field, I was quite stimulated by the different approaches to describe a concept of complexity. And what comes to my mind when saying that is how to use the best capacities of knowledge of people and infrastructure in our institutions to try to tackle problems that cannot be aborded by only one facet or one aspect. And is the trick, I think, is in how to make a common language to try to incorporate the abilities, the capacities, the knowledge, and the uncertainty that comes around all this to work together towards trying to find some solutions or goals into this objective. So I think, at least for me, part of the quid is how to build up a complex system that takes advantage of different possibilities that are already there in the reality to try to tackle those problems that we haven't been able as a society, as a civilization, to found a real solution. And that's one of the big challenges we have as humanity, as society, but of course, as an institution as ours, which in our country should try to make efforts to promote these capacities and take advantage of all the seeds and things that have already been there, and now to try to recompose the puzzle in order to go together.
Very well. Xavier, please.
So I think through his sort of short history, C3 has gone to different phases, and it needs to become sort of a next phase where all that has been learned and all the possibilities that are in front of us can be made a reality. I think the aspiration is to articulate and give an opportunity to the immense richness that this institution has. UNAM has experts of great level in many different disciplines, and not necessarily working to solve some of the most pressing problems. And so this is something that probably most of us can imagine that should be done. And it's been like that for probably ages. Now, how to do it? That's really the problem. That's really the challenge. And C3 is, I think, a very visionary and creative initiative that has become something quite real, but still with much more to achieve. That's a proposition I would like to advance. So how to articulate all these capabilities of the National University? We have become convinced that we would need to build this ecosystem. So this is a building, but it aspires to be an ecosystem. The ecosystem provides the different components
that the academics need to succeed in interacting with each other. And so far, that has been done in a sort of organic way, by very spontaneous invitations. And believe me, it's quite impressive, the level of talent and the level of discussions and the products of research that has come already from this only spontaneous way of becoming together and working in different problems. The thing is, this is not sustainable as such. It requires some more governance. It cannot go for too long in this organic sort of spontaneous way. So it needs more structure, and it has to be prepared to the substitution of the governance, especially people that are in charge of the organization. So all the coordinators will change, have been changing, and we need this structure. By the way, that's something that was proposed to us in an evaluation committee that acted 3 or 4 years ago. And their recommendations were pretty much in those lines. Even today, we find from some of the stakeholders of the center that they need more structure. They need more reference as to how to work and as to what are the rules, what is possible, what not, and so on. So we have to strike the right balance between not bureaucracy, not having a bureaucracy or something that gets in the way, but at the same time, something that is sustainable, something that has some internal structure that allows it to go on for longer. So that's, I think, the main challenge right now. Beyond, of course, the obvious choosing of appropriate problems and the capacity to invite and to be attractive for the people that are actually going to do the research. So it has been an attractor so far, but I think we should be able to make a value offer more clear and more attractive than it has been so far. And of course, as was said in one of the previous the talks that we were hearing before, we need to provide more results, because papers, which are very good, is not what not the only thing that was expected from the center. So we need to demonstrate that we can impact some of the most pressing problems. And if I can have a couple of illustrations. The results of some of these deliberations are related to what to do in the next phase. You can see here the main functions or the main tasks for the center are exactly as they were proposed from the beginning. And all the community that participated in this deliberation just reinforced those concepts, that we need to go after the largest and most important problems of society through projects that involve the complexity, interdisciplinary work from experts that come from the various subsystems of the university. Of course, train human resources in this way of doing work and this way of approaching the solution of the problems, and at the same time provide an opportunity to advance in the complexity science themselves. So all of that can and is happening at the center. They are all important. But they are all very important. And in the next one, the thing is, probably the most important factor to achieve those goals correctly is to go for important problems or problems with large implications. That's the way to achieve the previous, that's the way to achieve the previous other goals by doing this, these larger projects. So I will finish this intervention by saying that going for these problems is not that easy, even though we have had many talented people coming to C3. It is contrary to some people that have told me that there is jealousy and some reservations as to how this center is made. I think most people are very interested in what is going on here, but we need to provide them with some additional incentives to come here. Many of the people that have come are auto-motivated, but and I know that C3 is not for everyone. You have to be a collaborative, inclined person. You have to be open to other fields and so on. But there is plenty of people in the National University that are interested. So we need only to align some of the motivations and some of the incentives that will attract these other people that has not come with to us so far. So I think those are some of the ideas that have come in the last few years, and we need to go.
Thank you very much. Let me just ask you, so you feel that what you have just said is within what we heard in the previous session, right? In the previous roundtable, you could
it's very much aligned.
Yeah,
yes.
You are aligning and answering some of the things they were asking somehow in the, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, your turn.
As usual, I'm going to unalign myself with everybody. I'm going to try and join up. You know, as Alejandro said, you know, our mission has been well known and we believe it with all our hearts, etc., right? But what I want to try and do is put it a little bit in the context of the last roundtable, complexity science, etc. And I'm going to try and avoid completely use the word complexity, right, or complexity science. If we think about where we started, you can look at two things. You can start saying, here's my methodological toolbox. Now, what problems can I look at and solve with my methodological toolbox? And usually we don't go, oh, I can't solve that one. We'll give a seminar and we'll go, I've solved this one. Doesn't that look good? Now, the thing is that with all the problems that we've been talking about this week, we haven't solved any of them. So the point would be is that what's the methodological toolbox that we need to solve them? Well, we don't have one, right? It just doesn't exist, because if it did, we would have solved it. So what are the aspects of these problems that really just goes far beyond any notion of science? Forget about whether it's complexity science or traditional science, just goes far beyond them. There's two aspects. One of them is that real systems, you know, organisms, climate change, metabolic disease, whatever, are incredibly multifactorial. They're incredibly phenomenologically rich, right? What you can say about a person or a group of persons occupies all the disciplines that we have in this university, right? From sociology to genetics, right? And it's all on the same system, just that we divided them into little bits. That's fine. You know, it's difficult to say, well, I want to describe all the things about this system. Well, let me just go to one thing. Let's say, who's going to be diabetic? Well, what does that depend on? Depends on your genes, your genetics, your epigenetics, cell physiology, culture. You know, as Rolando said, there's, again, no discipline in this university that isn't relevant for just answering that one question, not hundreds of questions, right? So what are the implications of that? So the thing is that, first of all, we don't have the methodologies to go in that direction, although let's call it machine learning, at least statistical learning, at least can touch in that direction. But worse, nobody even bothers collecting the data to go in that direction, right? That's one of the key things that we're trying to do here in the C3, to try and say, if I want to respect, you know, I wouldn't use the word complexity of these problems, this multifactoriality, I need to get the data that respects that multifactoriality. I need to get genetics of people. I need to get their epigenetics. I need to get their behavior. I need to get what their social circumstances are, social determinants of health, and try and put it all together. And it's not impossible. You know, we're showing that it is feasible. Right? So that's the first thing. But then I have the question of how do I put it all together, right? So you have to have a methodology, a mathematical methodology, to be able to say, given all this data, what do I make of it? And that's when the problem is when you just throw AI at something and it just tells you an answer and you don't know what the answer means. You, as humans, if we're going to try and improve on a particular situation in climate change, et cetera, I have to be able to look at that data, look at that model and say, well, how do I make things better, right? So in that sense, that needs a full human understanding. And worse than that, it actually needs humans from many disciplines. Because if I have a model that's got genetics, epigenetics, sociology, psychology, the psychologists don't know anything about interpreting the genetics and vice versa. And this is a huge problem for the C3 thinking about organizationally, because we all like to be in our comfort zone. That's one of the great problems of trying to do interdisciplinary science. Nobody or very few want to step outside the zone and say, I need to learn something from these other people, right? We tend to be very happy with what we've got. But one of the most wonderful things about being in the C3 is just being able to go and talk to people in a different field and go, I learned so much from you. But at the same time, I can teach you a lot of stuff that you didn't know. And I can tell you that some of your shibboleths, some of your paradigms, maybe they need a little bit of adjustment. Because, in a language that, Santiago and I often talk about, every scientist has what we could call an enormous Bayesian prior about what they think is important, what methodologies they think is important, what data variables they think are important. And whenever a geneticist is going, hey, here's my GWAS to try and find out some polymorphisms related to diabetes, what they're forgetting about is there might be 1,000 other variables that are much more important, or those might be the most important ones. But if you don't have the data to look at those other ones, you don't have diddly squat because you're stuck only looking at the variables that you've got. So basically, there's two things that are absolutely going to or should fundamentally change science from how we're doing it. One is this thing, complete multifactoriality and the requirements of getting the data that can back that up. But second of all, how the hell do you get the methodologies and the interdisciplinary chains that tell you what the hell the data means, right? That's one thing. And then the second thing that's absolutely fundamental is this idea of adaptation. So basically, all things that come from physics, as it were, in physics, there's only one rule that, it's like Lord of the Rings. It's one rule to bind them all, right? It's either the law of gravity or the law of electromagnetism, or it could be Van der Waals interactions, et cetera, What happens in biology, and therefore in sociology and everything else, you have options, right? So in physics, you don't have options, right? So physics, energy minimalization or the force tells you what this system must do. Like Dr. Ruiz Coronel showed it very well in her intervention on the first day with the cat, the ball. Physics describes completely the center of gravity motion of the cat and the ball. But a ball doesn't have turn its legs up or down to land in a certain way, or a cat does. And physics, is no use whatsoever trying to explain why that happens. You can maybe help it explain how it happens, but it can't explain why it happens. So the thing is that in that sense, we have no paradigms, mathematical paradigms, for really how do you work, not only in a space of configurations where you have a rule like Newton's laws or something like that to take me from one state to another state, but what happens when you have many, many different rules and you don't even know what they are, right? So if we thought of, the great creator 4.5 billion years ago, thinking, well, I've just had a good idea, cockroach, there's another good idea, lion. Well, does cockroach beat lion, or does lion beat cockroach, or beat human being, etc., etc. So in other words, we just do not even have the conceptual or the mathematical frameworks to even address these questions, because game theory, you have to know everything before you even try to use it. You have to know what the set of rules are, what the set of strategies are, and who beats who, etc., etc. Right? So the point would be is that I think we need to face up. We can talk about traditional science or complexity science, but there is just a set of phenomena that we need to describe that we just don't have the least idea in some sense of how to address them, right? So.
Okay, now Alex, you just told us the history of this place, and clearly you were pioneers because you started really many years before that. How do you feel now that you heard the panel on complexity science? You think that you are right on it, that you were pioneering something that has become very important? How did you feel when you heard about complexity science?
Well, I am very proud to begin with that this exists. And I don't deny that we have had successes. Carlos, here with us, was the scientific coordinator and was very important to be able to convince the authorities to build this place, to begin with, in a fantastic place and on top of the volcanic rock. I also feel sad that so many years have passed and people still see us more as competition than as a place where they can get information and enrich their research. I think both Chris and I were naive. We really thought people would line up outside to fight to get in here and have the opportunity to talk to different fields. We found out in a rough way that this did not happen, and that moreover we were resented in some respects. I mentioned half jokingly that the name complexity didn't help. But I feel that this is the right seed for the future of the university, and that we have planted it already. It's not the only seed, but we have been able, the seed is alive and well. And listening to the people that were here, and I know them very well, Andrea, Juan Claudio, and Max, I think we have to show them what we can achieve. And we are, I just will mention one thing that happened just in the inauguration, which is that the new president of the university really asked us to intervene in a very important problem. We're not talking about climate change. No, violence at the university, mental health problems of students and everybody else. And they are asking us to act. Fortunately, we have, because we had many other crises before, we have created some technological means and ideas and new ideas, actually centered originally in the gender problem and the problems we suffer, especially women suffer from harassment and so on. So we have to answer now. We are, and I think we are in a very good moment to do that, to try to solve local problems first. I've been, talking about a couple of these systems we have created. One has to do with circulation of cars, and this is a gigantic place where thousands of cars arrive, and we have already created a system where we will share cars. And it needs intelligence, it needs planning, it needs all that. The other one has to do with security and so on. They are linked and so on. And unfortunately, up to now, these have not received the political support we need from the authorities or the resources to carry them on. But trying to be more modest, perhaps, and trying to solve local crises like we have now, and the president of the university coming to us and asking us, do something, please, to help solve these problems is a big opportunity. And I'm convinced, absolutely convinced, that we can do it, and that we have already made important inroads into solving this question. So I am using the opportunity to tell everybody that they are expecting us to act and really show that these ideas of bringing in all these specialties, psychology and the lawyers and the mathematicians and so on, to try to attack a very specific and very important problem at our own university is what we, I believe, should start doing. And of course, we're working on climate change. We are trying to organize new groups, bringing people, and we're trying to be humble. And for physicists, this is very difficult. So you know, we really want to listen to the other people. And we have achieved that, for example, with medical doctors, which were very skeptic about what we could give them. But now we have with Chris and with a group we formed, and with the best hospitals around, we have shown that this is possible and that we can have new ideas, new methods, new ways to detect dangers for health and so on. So I finish here.
Carlos, please. You were the one who had this idea of doing different things in the university. Could you explain us? Because it's not just C3. There are other there are other different centers and different institutions and different networks that are all together. Carlos put them together. So perhaps you could explain a bit about this new way of doing research and teaching and communication.
Yes, well, first of all, I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate all the community that makes up the Centro de Ciencias de la Complejidad for the achievements that you have done in all these years. We are now celebrating the 10th anniversary of this magnificent building, but it didn't start there. It was much before. And I remember when I was the director of the Institute of Neurobiology, that I was called by Chris at that time and Alejandro, who was the director of the Institute of Nuclear Sciences, where they called up many directors, not only of the scientific subsystems, but also of faculties and the Institutes of Humanities, to start to talk about the need to make up a different approach to problems in the university, taking advantage of the capacities we had. So since then, it was a very, let's say, an enthusiastic and catchy idea, because in each of our islands, as I see sometimes the entities of our institution, we have many problems to solve, and we are interested in specific scientific problems and also in teaching and trying to make it up better and try to see, but then we see a lot of obstacles to do that. And we are very focused into that. But what is needed is to rise up the view a little bit and try to see a forest view, not just a tree. The trees are important, of course, but the forest is most important. So when I had the opportunity to serve the university in the coordination of scientific research, I started to talk with everyone. Most of you know that the scientific subsystem is made up of 30 entities plus several others university programs. And when you are seated there and start to listen to the people, it is very impressive in terms of first knowing better the capacities and the richness of our institution, but after that is to see how complex it is to articulate the needs of each of these. So one of the things at that time, when we were initiating in the period of Dr. Narro, was what to do with the research in the university. Can we still grow and strengthen and develop with the same path that has been done in the decades before? And to me, I thought it was not feasible nor sustainable in the future. So we had to look for another ways to take advantage of the capacities of the university to do more reliable impact and helpful science and serve the society also. So in that sleepless nights, I would say, to what to propose to the president of the university and things like that, I was very fortunate because these guys came to me and said, well, we want to do this and this. And I say, this is something that has to be supported. So show me, propose me, lead me in these things to try to see what other possibilities, because the inertia, the obstacles, the bureaucracy of the institution, it's very hard to move. And I think this is still a challenge today, but I would say I am optimist about it, because if there wasn't a seed to do things differently, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight. It is because there's an atmosphere and a field, a soil that recovers those seeds that can make this grow. And I want you to see now, not just as a seed, but as a plant that is going on, and not only a plant, but a garden, and maybe not only a garden, but the start of a forest, right? To make these things. Because if you put your view behind and see all the collections and the results and the things that you have been doing, they are there and they seem. There are still challenges, yes, of course. We cannot deny that. But the thing is that I believe, following the Mexican yellow at the football stadium, sí se puede. Yes, we can do it. And you are the live demonstration that this can be done. We need more effort. We need more input. We have to keep striving, but it is feasible. And I want to provoke you with this participation. We, I believe, have to take the university, the national university, as a complex problem to study. Because part of the things that have been putting these challenges and obstacles and things like that is because of the way we are structured and things like that. So we need to understand it where we come from, where we're gonna want to go, and how these interactions have to be tackled into some way, and do it in a propositive way, not in a way that, as Alejandro was mentioning, can see the C3 as a competition, but on the contrary, as a complement to the capacities of the university, and maybe not only a complementarity, but a potentiating capacity to do things much better. So I think the university should be studied with the approach of the complex science that you have developed to try to understand that community, how it goes, how to tackle this in order to break some barriers that are impeding the possibility of going farther or faster than as we would like. And I would collect what Alejandro just said, and that many of you witnessed on Monday morning during the inauguration of this symposium. And that was the call of the president of the university, Dr. Lomelí, who I am sure is convinced of the potentiality of this center and is eager to try to get more support into that. He's asking us to try to help him to attend something that is very crucial to the main, I would say, actual possibilities of the university to go on. I think it is very, very serious problem that we are living now. But if it is important for the university, it is not stopped. It doesn't stop there, because it's something that is happening with our young people in our society due to many of the problems that we have. So if we can use a complex institution like this to try to solve the problems of health, of mental health, of violence, of insecurity, and try to articulate ways to try to solve some of these problems, this would have also an impact in the Mexican society and also in the world. Let's see what's going on everywhere, in every country with these things. We are attending now the generation that was struck by the pandemic, that didn't have a possibility to interact as an adolescent, as we many grew doing. And so there is a lot of lacks into that. In spite of that, there's also the impact of the social networks and the things that are being done. These kids were born with a screen, and their world reflects into that. So sometimes when you think about this, to say, maybe they're not thinking the same way I'm doing, and probably I'm too old to understand many of the things, the capacities and the possibilities they have to enlarge their world is very, very high. But at the same time, it has many risks and many problems, and we have to understand that. So I would support the call of the president of the university to say, let's get involved into this problem. It would be very helpful. It I think, collects all the needs and requisites of a complex problem to solve, but at the same time, we would be serving the institution in a very important way, and that would open many doors and windows, trying to attract the capacities of the other areas of the university and tell them, we're not competing. This is an open place for you to come and contribute to this. Let's work together. And to me, that's the soul of the C3, work together. And with that, let's say, vision is that we also try to do some other efforts like the RAI with the Institutes of Health, or for example, the studies of the human genome, or the Climate Change Center and things like that, which are structures that are within the umbrella of the coordination of scientific research, but none of them are independent entities like that. So what we are trying to explore there is how to promote the transversal, horizontal interaction between our academics and give them the atmosphere to do that. That was the thing.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Actually, to serve this university is to serve this country, because we are really in a very important place of the country. Xavier is also a pioneer of the Campus Morelos, because the university has done many other experiments. And believe me that the campus were really a challenge, a huge challenge. I work in the Campus Morelos, and I have now my students are the COVID students, and you're right. I mean, it's really something special. So I wonder, well, what's your opinion, Javier, about, well, this sort of organization that the center has, and how your very vast experience in the Campus Morelos and in the university, you think is helping you to get, organized in a very different environment?
Yeah, so I think the main task that was assigned to me was to try to put some of the experience that I have dealing with the different sectors of the university and different previous posts that I had to try and solve some of the problems that are mainly practical problems and organizational problems, not really scientific problems. And I want to bring this concept that was given, I think, this morning by Rafael Lozano, that you don't own complexity, you inhabit complexity. And this ecosystem that we're trying to support here and to develop is intended to do that. So methodologically, we need to attract expertise more than we have had so far, especially in the other areas of the university, humanities and social sciences and the schools. We need to put in their hands the tools, in the hands of these experts, the tools. One of the tools, main tool is this laboratory, the national laboratory, the software that has been developed here, and the expertise of the core technicians and scientists that have worked with complex approaches to the problems, and that you don't have that in other places of the university. We have to align the incentives, both human resources, postdocs, students, young researchers, that could be assigned to the projects and then serve the university after the training of those resources, and then contribute with that to the motivation. Many people are auto-motivated, as I said, but some others require additional motivation. So with all that, I believe firmly that when you put together talented people, you will guarantee very good results. But you need the system to foster that. So our aim should be to inhabit the complex problems with talented people. And that inhabitation will produce excellent results. And that's a task that I think I have in front of me. And I have a couple of slides just to illustrate what the way to organize this has been proposed. No sé si, Oscar, ¿me pasas las últimas dos? No. Las dos siguientes, Después de la que me habías pasado. Esa sáltate, la que sigue. Okay, so we should be able to open possibilities of working at C3, both based on the offer of the researchers, bottom up, either because these are technical developments or methodological developments or collaborative problems on the basic science behind complexity analysis. Now, the other ways from demand. Very well illustrated by the call that we recently received from the president of the university. That's this problem, and I want you to put together a team to try and solve it. So we can work on both ways, and we have been working both ways, but it should be very clear that you need to have a problem which is interdisciplinary, or that approaches the problem from the complexity sciences. So those two are the only requisites. And the larger and the most important the problem, the more resources that we can assign to those projects. And finally, la que sigue, la que sigue. There are several challenges. I listed them there. It's just to illustrate that we have several problems that have not been solved so far, or some of them have been partially solved. But I think that all of them could be overcome with a decisive support from the president of the university, and that could give a good opportunity to our center to develop much better. Okay, some of these were identified by the evaluation committee that presided my post here, and some of them we just developed more of the concepts by dialogue among the stakeholders of the center. Some of these are at the institutional level, and you see there are some serious trouble to overcome those. But I'm sure that they can be solved, and some of them had started to be solved. And the next is at the internal level. In the next, la que sigue, Oscar. And some of them I already mentioned, and they involve some of the internal organization, that we have more clear rules and more clear pathways for people that work in here. But I believe that we are in a good path. I believe that these problems are responsible for some of the way that we have been like a little behind of what we were intending to do. But I'm very confident that when we solve some of these problems, all the rest is going to be going our way, and we will give good results, which is really the purpose.
Great. Okay, so we are going to close the table, but I will give you, let's say, a couple of minutes for closing remarks. How do you see the future? Well, there are closing remarks. They have to be very deep. Okay, so you start, Chris.
I think that it's the following thing, right? It's like, hopefully people can develop the idea of their scientific career as a vocation, meaning a vocation in the sense of, you look at these big problems, and the thing is that, to me, it's, I started off in quantum gravity, so, and I loved it, but, on the other hand, it's only inspiring in an incredibly selfish sense, right? Meaning, okay, I'll look good, and it's wonderful to understand something deep about the universe. But the point would be is that if you're contributing in a significant way to these big problems, they're much more complex than quantum gravity, right? So in their way, right? And so the thing is, at the same time, you can be inspired by thinking, well, maybe I can do something not only for the university, but for the country, and in these major problems beyond, right? And to me, that's a very inspiring thing, to think you can kill two birds with one stone. You can try and do great science. Huh? No, it's metaphorical. So not, it might not be ecological, but it is metaphorical. So to me, it's like I always try to say, please, come and try and be inspired too, and if you're not inspired, then, we'd like to know why people aren't inspired by, trying to make a contribution to these things that just have been insoluble, right? That's the key point. We're not the things that we don't know how to solve, and people have been trying to do it for decades and decades and decades. And as we've emphasized, the problems get worse. So, whether you call it traditional science or complexity science or anything, we're failing, right? That's the key. So how do we get to be a bit more successful?
Very well. That was very good, Chris. Now, your turn, Alex.
Why do you look at me like that? Okay. I think there's what Xavier was mentioning, and also Carlos. There is a structural problem in our university and in all universities. There's a model where individual achievements are the priority. It doesn't matter in what theme. I always say, if you are an expert on grasshoppers from Thailand, but you are really great at it, you get promoted here. However, we have at the university, we still follow this way of evaluating. As long as this is so, I think it would be very difficult, and I have experienced it myself. I have brought here people from different institutes who have been slowly but surely going away from here because they have to, as I mentioned before, we all belong. This is our second name. Yes, I belong to the Nuclear Science Institute and so on. And they are pressured at their institutes to fulfill their jobs there. And they are judged by the SIC, the coordination, in a way which values their own clear contributions and publications, essentially. There's no recognition of the value of teaching is one, that's every place in the world. It's not enoughly recognized. But work in groups is also looked as, what did you do there in this group? So I think it is very fundamental that the university, it's not easy, because it's 50 years, 60 years, 70 years of tradition, to open up a section where this collaborative work in important problems of the country are evaluated in a different way. So I'll finish there. I think if we can help solve these problems at the university, we can also try to push for these changes in evaluation, because this is the gasoline that really, I think most of the problem has been there, that people have to fulfill a quota, and they are analyzed from this individual point of view. There's also we have a national system of researchers where this is also the main point. Counting publications, counting citations, and so on, and not the importance of the work. So I finished there, but I'm very hopeful. I don't want to finish with a bad note, that the C3 will survive, and that it will become a new tree that will grow in this university.
Great. Well, evaluation is an international problem, right? It's not just for us, but I think you're right. Carlos, your turn. Final remarks.
Yeah, I would like just to make a brief comment on what Alejandro was talking, because I think it is an essential issue for helping to flourish these different approaches to and that should be strengthened. But I would just like to remember, especially to those that are already members of the academic institution as investigators, professors, things like that, that it is us who belong to many of these collegiate bodies that perform the evaluation activity. I can tell you by experience, not only by being on the coordination of scientific research, where that was a topic to be discussed on many occasions, but also as a general director of the GAPA, the personal academic issue, where we had to review and design, for example, the call for the pre-day, which is a system of evaluation, which is very important. And I can tell you that a lot of work has been put in the words of that call, and those words involve just what Alejandro is saying, is we should put the strength of the evaluation of the qualitative issues on the impact of the research, on potentiating the collaborative work, and it's all there. But it is very frustrating to see how the committees apply that. And who formed the committees? We do. We own, as individuals, belong to that. And so, although I fully support the things that evaluation should be revised at the institutional level, I just want to recall the participation that we have when we belong to those committees. And if we take the normativity that is there and apply it, there would be a change, and doesn't need to do much. The change must be done in ourselves. And the same thing applies when we do our research. We want the recognition for us, we want to do the individual work, there are stimuli to do that. But if we change that and say, I want to reach you and want to know what you want, why don't we do something together, then it'll start to change. So yes, at the institutional level, many things have to be done, but at the individual level, we have to change also.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Javier, please.
First of all, I would like to join the congratulations to all the organizers and participants of this event. I was really delighted to attend all the sessions. I learned a lot. I was very much stimulated. And that's why I think I can finish with a note of saying that I am very thankful and I'm very hopeful. It's not been easy to manage this center from where I came from. And even after that not so easy task, I remain completely motivated, just as when I started. And that's because this every day that I come here, it's a delight to interact with all the members of the center and all the friends of the center and all the visiting researchers of the center. This is really as stimulating as you can get. It certainly has been the most stimulating community that I have been involved in my life. So I remain very motivated and very hopeful that things will go very well.
Those were wonderful final remarks. Now, a big applause for this table. These guys, they are the reason why we are here. So let's give them a big applause.